Hello, and welcome to the Persona Recap, a week-to-week coverage of the Persona games available on modern hardware for those of you who either don't have time or can't be bothered to watch a 1-hour video daily from my Persona Rewind series. Today is April 6th, and we find ourselves on a train that has been delayed by a terminal case of not giving a shit. Once we arrive at the port, we find ourselves in a power outage and surrounded by coffins and blood. This is not that unnerving, as that is pretty close to where I live in my apartments currently. Once we arrive at the dorm, we meet a creepy kid with an echo to his voice. He offers us a contract which cannot be legally binding as we are both minors. After I sign my name and he disappears into shadow, Yukari and Mitsuru come upon us. They also have an echo to their voice, so I can only assume that this was not in fact supernatural, but because of the large room we are in. After making it clear that I'm not welcome there, they lead me to my room, and I go to bed. As time begins to repeat itself, I find myself back at the dorm and come across the boy once again. This time he sounds distinctly younger. Besides the boy sounding younger, there is not much of note that changes, including being made to feel unwelcome and being led to bed. As I go to bed, I jump realities yet again, this time into being a woman. Despite being a woman, I'm still made to feel like I don't belong in this dorm, which is a surprise to me. It means that it's not a gender issue, they just don't like me personally. It is now April 7th. Yukari comes and wakes us up and leads us to school. On the way to school, we go across a train, which is honestly quite awesome as it goes across the ocean? ? After we go to the school, the principal has a welcoming announcement ceremony that we must attend, and as we go there, it turns out that Yukari and I started some rumors by arriving together. After being questioned out and yelled at by teachers, we go to class, where we are introduced to Junpei. After Yukari adds more fuel to the flames of the rumors, that's not a saying, Junpei offers to show us around the school. He is the least effective guide that I've ever met, letting us wander around aimlessly and then talking about things. Does anything happen at night that day? When we wake up and start reality again, Yukari is much meaner. That's the only noticeable difference for today. Today is April the 8th, and I gave Junpei the answer to a question that the teacher asked. I can't remember what that question was, so it must not have been important. When I get back to the dorm that night, I'm introduced and interviewed by the director. A man who is probably a little too modeled after myself. After going to bed, it is revealed that we are being spied on by two of my classmates and this director. I hate to see what they saw. While this is happening, a monster gives birth. Also worthy of note, I dream about an elevator where a man named Igor and a woman named Elizabeth tell me that I'm allowed there because of that contract with the kid. So there's that. When I jump to the other reality, the only noticeable difference is that the horror story to start my day at school is slightly different. Today is April the 9th, and Junpei reveals why he flunks tests, and then after school takes me to Polonia Mall, where we play at the arcade and he tries the claw game. Later that night, I was awoken in the middle of my sleep to run away from a monster. After given a sword and a gun, my first instinct is to shoot myself. So I do, and it summons a persona, which then destroys the monster. Since I had been awoken from the middle of my sleep, I decided to take a nap. As I nap, I have a vision of the future. I swear I kept this vision of the future to release as bonus content when that time comes around, and then I accidentally deleted it, so whoops about that. I awake to find myself on a train, and as I leave to go visit wherever I'm going to be staying in the future, I get a virus on my phone. That's the big city for you. Eventually, I track down the cafe where I'm going to stay and meet Sojiro Sakura. After being told off, I'm given a second to remember my past. While I do this, I drift off and am introduced to Igor again. I said it differently than I did last. Whoops. Igor seems to have laryngitis. I hope he recovers soon. I find myself back on that train having the same vision as before, and pretty much everything remains the same. When I'm given a second to reflect on my past looks different than I remember it looking before. I'm remembering it differently. I guess I had different camera angles in my brain. Once I awaken and find myself going back to school, I decide to sleep in class today because I know I'm going to be awoken in the middle of the night later and figure I should get my beauty sleep. Junpei still shows me around, but he doesn't show me to the arcade this time. Despite being in a different reality, the monsters still decide to show up, and I still kill them. I'm very tired, so I think I'm going to take a nap. When I awaken, I decide to stay up for school this time, and Yukari shows me around to Polonium Mall. She doesn't seem to have much interest in clubbing. Once it gets late at night, 3 for 3 happens and the monsters show up, which once again leads to me taking a nap. Today is April 10th, and I'm driven by Sojiro to meet the principal and the teacher who will be teaching me, my homeroom teacher, that one. When handing me my student handbook, the teacher also includes a flyer that she hastily takes back. On the drive back home, it looks like there's a train accident, and I'm starting to see a pattern. Once we get home, it's basically time for bed. As I'm getting ready for bed, Sojiro calls me and tells me that he forgot to lock up. I can't seem to find the point of why this was included, but it was, so here it is. When I awaken again and am driven to meet the principal and the teacher, the conversation is ever so slightly different. There's no flyer this time. Largely, the day remains the same, including the train accident and the call later at night from Sojiro. Today is April the 11th, and as I awaken, Sojiro made breakfast for me. It's curry, which is a bit heavy for the morning, but is a kind gesture nonetheless. As I make my way to Shujin Academy, it begins to rain, and as I take cover from the rain, I come across a girl in a similar uniform as mine. As we acknowledge each other, a creeper pulls up with an extremely tiny face. He needs a bigger face. After Sir Tiny Face gets lost, a young man approaches me and introduces himself as Ryuji, and we proceed to get lost. After we find out that I'm super into cosplay, we escape from some dungeons and run into Morgana, who insults us and also Ryuji first. Like, just to clarify for anyone who hasn't played recently or has like some kind of, what? She's rude first, just to make sure we're clear. Well, despite that, he still helps us get unlost, and we find ourselves in trouble with the teachers. Once I get home, I am also in trouble with Sojiro. As I go to sleep for that night, I am greeted by a dream where Igor seems healthier, and then I wake up on a train as I arrive in Inaba, and I shake a lot of hands. Today is April the 12th, and as I awaken, I answer the questions the teacher asks me and explore the metaverse, as we find out it's called. While we're there, we learn about the cognitive world and cognitive copies. While this happens, we get in trouble and Ryuji awakens his persona. After we escape, Ryuji decides to ruin my meal as well. When I awaken again and go back to school, Kamoshida decides to shit-talk me even more in front of my face, and I continue to learn more and feel bad about Shiho. I really wish there was more we could do for her, or get to know her. Eventually I get home and get to bed. While in bed, I have a dream about running through fog, but then I awaken and go to school. I'm introduced to the class where I meet Chie, Yosuke, and Yukiko. We are sent home early and find out that there was a murder. Just can't escape this shit. Today is April the 13th, and I cross-examined the volleyball team during a volleyball exhibition match against the teachers. I then get yelled at by Kamoshida. When I go to sleep and awake, I do exactly the same thing. Even though I try to be more subtle about it, it doesn't seem to work out for me. After 2 days of that, I go to sleep and I wake up to find myself back in Inaba, walking down the street where Yosuke crashes his bike. At school, he pretty immediately tries to buy my friendship as the interesting person in town, where he treats me to food, where I get to meet Saki, his crush. Everyone keeps yelling about the Midnight Channel, where you can see your soulmate on the TV while it's raining, and I see Saki, which is not good use for Yosuke. And that's gonna round out our week. Now, this is the part where I'm going to do some self-promo, so if you're not interested in that, feel free to click off now. If you're enjoying this insane project, you can check out the longer version of it over here at Persona Rewind, where I am doing these daily as I play through all of the games rather than just recap it. And if you're enjoying it, remember to like, comment, subscribe. And, I hate saying that, but it actually is like an emotional need for me. So that would be really helpful and I'd appreciate it. You can also check out my music on Spotify. It's not very good, so I wouldn't, but you can do that. In addition to that, I do stream on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/MacTheVoid, spelled like the channel. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my coffee supporter, Fenbrook. So thank you. And on that note, I don't have a sign off. I imagine something's been playing this entire time. Maybe not. There's probably links. I'm probably going to cut off right in the middle of a sentence.